National 5 biology students, let's do this past paper question together. So it says the results of a blood count for 2 patients are shown. We've got 4 different components of the blood count: white blood cell, red blood cell, hemoglobin and platelets, and we've got the normal range followed by the results for patient R and the results for patient S. A part 1 says which patient has all 4 components within the normal range. So let's have a look then. The normal range for white blood cell is 4 to 11, so patient R is in that normal range, as is patient S, so no clues there. The red blood cell is 4.5 to 5.5, so patient R is in that range, but patient S is not in that range for red blood cells. So immediately we're thinking it's going to be R, but let's just check the other ones. Hemoglobin between 130 and 170, and platelets between 150 and 450. So we can say yes to both of them. However, it's clear that patient R is the one which has all 4 components within the normal range. 4 weeks later, both patients had their blood retested. The hemoglobin content of the blood of patient S had increased by 20%. Okay, so hemoglobin, which is here, patient S, we're looking at this value here, 115, okay? So to calculate the number of units of hemoglobin in the second blood count, so if they were at 115 and they increased by 20%, how do we calculate that? So there's 2 ways of doing it. The quick way of doing it is to change 20% into a decimal. Now, because we are increasing by 20%, we would simply times 115 by 1.2. Now let me explain that, because 1.0 is 100%, okay? And then 0.2 is 20%. So if we times it by 1.2, we'll be able to calculate a 20% increase, okay? That's a quick way of doing it if you know what your percentages are as decimals. If you don't know that, however, there's another way to do it. You can do 115 divided by 100. And the reason we do that is to work out what 1% is going to be, okay? So 115 divided by 100 gives us 1.15. That is the equivalent to 1%. But we want to find out what the 20% increase is. So we times that by 20, and that gives us 23. Okay, so the increase is 23, but they already had 115. So we're adding the 23 onto the 115, and that gives us a total of 138. Apologies, 138. 138. Okay, next question. On containing hemoglobin, describe one way in which a red blood cell is specialised to carry out its function and explain the advantage of this specialisation. Okay, so we can't mention hemoglobin, but we can mention the fact that a red blood cell has no nucleus, okay, or that it has a biconcave shape. You don't need to say both of these, but I'm just putting down all the options, which means it has a nice large surface area. Okay. Now, what's the explanation? Well, the explanation for no nucleus is that there is more space to transport more oxygen. Okay. And it's a similar reason actually for the biconcave and large surface area as your description. The explanation for this one is that it will be able to transport more oxygen. Okay, so all of these adaptations, all of these features of a red blood cell are all about optimizing or transporting more oxygen. That is the key thing to remember with that kind of question.